Hasan's Depp v. Heard coverage was some of the worst I've seen. Not worse in terms of like the isolated talking points. A lot of the lawyer reacts people were worse. There was a lot of, like Popcorn Planet, different like men's rights activist people that got involved that had worse like individual commentary. The thing is that I don't take those people's commentary seriously from the beginning. I don't care what they think. Hasan occupies a progressive space on the internet, and so the fact that his coverage was so bad, it's just more meaningful than a lot of other people who covered the case. It kind of is just this thing that's like hovering above his entire platform in terms of his ability to relate to women. And not only was his coverage bad, he has consistently defended his takes. And in ways, by the way, that are so fucking obnoxious and so arrogant and downright kind of cruel sometimes.
I've also talked about how they actively work to keep women out of politics. I think Hasan Piker is a great example of this. He contributed a great deal to the mocking of Amber Heard's testimony, and now he's doing the same thing to Blake Lively.
Oh, no. I do wish I just ripped into Amber Heard now, though. I really do. Because I would have gotten so much clout. Like, I would have gotten endless amounts of clout off of that. My attitude on Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp was always that I don't like either of these people. I think that it's Hollywood assholes in general. But people get so mad when I say this, and I think more people will inevitably arrive at this conclusion.
And his idea is like, I think when other people, in like a couple years, people are gonna come around, they're gonna agree with me. No, they're not, because you're wrong. Because you don't know what you're talking about. Because you never understood the trial in the first place. Especially too, when he does this thing about like, I think people think that I like covered the trial extensively, but I really didn't.
Like I barely even touched it. I barely even covered it.
It's like, well, okay, if you didn't cover the trial extensively, why are you so committed to this opinion right now? If you didn't cover it extensively, that makes me think that you don't really know that much about it, that you didn't really do that much research into it, you didn't look into it that far, and I know that because I've seen your coverage, and I know that you fucking never knew what you were talking about. You fully just like pulled facts out of your ass.
This is why a lot of people were like coming in here for the past couple of days talking about how, are you gonna do apologies or some shit? Because they just completely have misunderstood my position on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard saga, which is fine.
We completely misunderstood his position. How fucking condescending. When you don't know anything about the case. So what we're gonna do today, we're gonna go through a PowerPoint that I made of like the major points in the Depp v. Heard case, and then we're gonna watch Hasan's videos. And we're gonna see exactly how much we misunderstood him. First, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, they met on the set of The Rum Diaries in 2009. She was 22 at the time, Johnny was 45. Before she was born, Johnny had already been in like blockbuster movies. So he had been in the industry for a lot longer than she had. He had a lot more power than she had in the industry. And again, in a relationship with a non-abusive person, could be fine. If you're aware of it, if you're aware of the power imbalance, you can be responsible and fine and be in a loving relationship. That's whatever. The thing is, Johnny definitely was not doing that.
Part of that is I was confused as to the fact that whatever her age was at the time of these various arguments, she was mid-20s to late 20s and into 30s. I couldn't understand how I had somehow arrived at where I'd arrived from where I came from in the beginning of my life and worked for 30 plus years doing these things. It was astounding how wrong I was about everything.
In Johnny's own rhetoric, there definitely is something about, she was younger than me, she should have listened to me. So they start dating in November of 2011. Now this is a screenshot of her therapy notes. The therapy notes are pretty important to me in terms of setting up the timeline because Amber's therapist, Bonnie Jacobs, her first therapist, was really the first person that Amber told about the abuse. Immediately once her and Johnny start dating in November of 2011, there's already problems being reported. So I have a few things from the therapy notes that I do think are important to point out. These are things that Amber was reporting to Dr. Jacobs. Am I right in thinking Hasan ignored later updates in Depp v. Heard, like the unsealing of docs and the investigation into astroturfing bot campaigns? From my understanding, yes. I have never seen any additional coverage of the Depp v. Heard case after the jury verdict from Hasan. I'm not sure if Hasan realizes that the case didn't end with the jury verdict. But yeah, as far as I know, he did not cover the appeal, he did not cover the eventual settlement, and he did not cover the unsealed documents, maybe the bot campaigns he's talked about in relation recently with like the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively stuff. It's possible that that's gotten brought up, but I don't think he's ever covered it specifically from the Depp v. Heard angle. But so yeah, she was telling her therapist that Johnny was drinking a lot. She was determined to help him get sober. She then says that Johnny would disappear for days at a time with no contact. This becomes a big part of the later allegations, where Amber will get criticized a lot for like following Johnny from room to room. The reason she does that is because he would just disappear. They would get into fights, he would leave, and then she wouldn't hear from him for days at a time, where she was worried that he was cheating on her, she was worried that he was gonna hurt himself because he was on a bender, and she also felt a lot of the time, like when he disappeared like that with no contact, that he was doing it to punish her for getting upset with him. So when she follows him around from room to room, that's her trying to continuously engage with him. She's trying to like get him to calm down. Not doing it well, by the way. I'm not gonna say that Amber did everything right. She did not. She did stuff that absolutely made things worse. But this is like a huge thing of the allegations against Amber, was that she would start a fight with him and then she would follow him into a bathroom and she wouldn't let him be alone. It's like, yeah, because number one, he would lock the door and she was worried that he was gonna like OD and die in there because he was on drugs so viciously. And that is also something that when you listen to the full audio recordings becomes extremely apparent, because Johnny does just fall asleep at random times. Like he will be talking and then 2 minutes later he's snoring. If your boyfriend who's a drug addict goes into a bathroom, closes the door, and you think he might have passed out in there, yeah, it is kind of important for you to get into that room.
Well, how did you try to pull
By
me?
pounding on the door and waking you up every 15 minutes and then falling asleep next to the door so I could hear you snore in case that you vomited. I could call EMS if you ever stopped snoring.
Because you're afraid I was going to die.
I thought you would choke on your own vomit, which is very likely with you.
Really?
Yes, very
But I
likely.
vomit a lot.
Yes.
So that's just something that is important to keep in mind when people try to make this whole thing about Amber following Johnny from room to room. It was not anywhere near as unreasonable as people make it out to be when you actually look at the history of the relationship and the things that Johnny would do and the concerns that Amber had and the fears that Amber had. And she also just frankly is a kind of codependent person. He would verbally abuse her. These are like early in the notes where he would start calling her a whore, start criticizing her wardrobe. But then when he would sober up, he would be very apologetic and kind. So this starts this whole cycle of like, he's drunk, he's mean, he's sober, he's nice. Amber is very, very convinced that if she can just get him sober, everything will be fine. There are also controlling behaviors that start to come out during this time. So he starts getting upset about Amber's friendships with both men and women because she's bisexual, so he is constantly accusing her of cheating on him with pretty much anybody. Amber does start reporting violence in these early sessions. At first, it's not violence like directed at her. It's stuff where like he would have problems maintaining an erection, and then he would get violent and angry. There's no details about what that means in terms of violence, but eventually we start hearing more specific things about him throwing things, and sometimes those things hit her. They're not necessarily being aimed at her, but they do hit her. So this is December of 2011. This is a month into the relationship. Johnny came to Amber's apartment extremely drunk and started cursing and screaming, leading to a fight that became so loud, Amber's landlord allegedly threatened to call the police. She also complains around this time about Johnny's many enablers, specifically his sister, Christy. So she says Johnny's sister is his manager and works to keep him happy so he can financially support their family, and people are willing to get him whatever he wants because he's a celebrity and he pays them. She also complained that Christie would help Johnny get access to drugs. These are claims that have been corroborated in other instances, including in a lawsuit with Johnny Depp and his, at the time, business management, TMG. There were a lot of things in the TMG lawsuit about Johnny's sister specifically spending his money as if it were her own. But this is like an important thing to keep in mind, that pretty much everyone around Johnny was an enabler. And I know this because I went through everyone's text messages. Not just between Johnny and Amber or anything else, like between like Christie and Johnny's doctors. I know what people were saying to each other. And it's so fucking crazy too, for all these people to get on like their little live streams where they only watched a couple minutes of the court case and don't understand the dynamic of the entire system around Johnny Depp. His fucking assistants, what they would do, because they all wanted to please him and they didn't want to tell him no about anything, but they also were all kind of worried that he was gonna fucking kill himself because he was doing so many drugs. What they would do, they would get him drugs, and then they would do drugs with him, and they would like make it seem to him like it was like just a group thing of like, oh, we love that you're doing drugs, we want to do them with you. What it really was they were trying to like use some of his supply because they thought that he was gonna do it all himself and then die. So if you want to talk about the people abusing Johnny Depp, it's the people around him who actively know that he's fucking up his life and is slowly killing himself and allowing him to do it because he pays their checks. I did the math at one point and I think 80% of his witnesses were financially tied to him in some way. I don't even know if it was 80% of his witnesses. I think it was 80% of the witnesses in the whole case. Like a majority of the people who testified in Depp v. Heard have some sort of financial tie to Johnny Depp. They have been financially benefited by him in some ways, including some of Amber's witnesses. Like her friends and family lived in homes owned by Johnny Depp. And people paint that as he's just a super nice, generous guy who just wanted his family, he wanted his wife's family to be comfortable. It's like, no, he wanted them to all be dependent on him. The same way that he wanted Amber to have a credit card that he oversaw. He didn't want her to have her own money anymore. He wanted her to have a credit card that he paid the bills on, and he also wanted to pay for her entire family's like living expenses. At that point, how do you get out of an abusive relationship with someone who's financing your family's lives? And that's the thing too, when it comes to like Hasan's coverage of everything, Hasan is just overlooking all of this. The leftist is overlooking the way that money played a part in the entire thing. He was financing everyone's lives. Of course, all those people didn't want to go against him. And yet some of them still did. I think it's pretty miraculous that so many friends and family of Amber did testify and say, yeah, we saw him abuse her. So March of 2013, we have the first like real assault allegation. There's like two that happen at the beginning of March. But so this is one of their first, this is like the second instance of an actual like assault where they're not just like fighting and he starts getting like violent and loud and throws things. She would describe it as like a full-on assault where she did not expect him to like hit her. The next day, they have a text exchange where Johnny refers to what happened the day before as a disco bloodbath and a hideous moment. This is from the therapy notes. March 18th, Amber tells her therapist that Johnny threatened to kill her during a fight in their apartment. Yet again, the landlord threatened to call the police, but the next day Johnny apologized and was loving and nice again. This is where we start getting Amber taking photos. People will try to delegitimize the photos by saying that like it was proven that Amber edited them, or it was proven that she changed the metadata. I don't know. The only thing that was proven was that her photos had gone through an editing software. What editing software means is the Photos app on her phone. If you actually fucking look into the forensic expert who testified for Johnny Depp and said that Amber's photos went through a photo editing software, the software he names is Photos on an iPhone. The default photo storage app. on every iPhone. And the reason that the metadata was a little funky and why it says it went through an editing software is that Amber had like one phone. She got a new phone. The photos went into the cloud. They then got like re-downloaded onto her new phone. And because it went from like Photos 1.0 to Photos 3.0, that makes it seem like it went through multiple photo apps when it fucking didn't. There is evidence of Johnny editing his photos. There is evidence of Johnny lying about the date of some of his photos when you compare it to the metadata. Anyway, she starts taking photos. She also starts texting people, especially like her mom and then her friends like Rocky, Io, her sister, Whitney. A lot of those text messages, again, not used as evidence in the court. She submitted them. She submitted the text messages, but they were deemed hearsay by the judge, and she was not able to present them to the jury. This one was the big one that is fucking insane that it didn't get counted as evidence on Amber's side. This is a text message, a text exchange that Amber had with Johnny's assistant, where Johnny's own assistant says, "When I told him he kicked you, he cried." So Johnny's assistant admitted in a text message that Johnny had been violent toward Amber. The jury never got to see this text message. This also got rejected as hearsay, despite the fact that this assistant was present during that instance. This was on a plane ride, where Amber also has like audio recordings too of Johnny in a bathroom like moaning because he's drunk. But Stephen Deuters was on that plane ride. He saw Johnny being violent toward Amber. He acknowledged it in a text message, and the judge decided that that was hearsay. Early to mid 2014, Dr. Kipper becomes Johnny Depp's doctor. Dr. Kipper is a man who, years prior, had had his license suspended temporarily because he was overprescribing drugs to Ozzy Osbourne and, like, low-key almost killed Ozzy Osbourne. So this doctor is, like, kinda sus, but he comes on as the head of not just Johnny's medical team, but Johnny and Amber's medical team. All of Amber's medical and mental health care becomes overseen by doctors hired by Johnny. So she said all kinds of medications, and frankly, I have lost track of which ones to keep me sedated or keep me calm, basically to keep my body from responding to the world I was living in. Johnny, after him and Amber got a divorce, he sent one of the nurses that he hired to be like Amber's personal nurse. I don't know if this comes up in the clips we're gonna watch of Hasan, but who I know Hasan has talked about because he's a fucking idiot. This nurse at one point reported seeing injuries on Amber, and Hasan implies that this woman might be lying because she was friends with Amber, neglecting to acknowledge the fact that she was also an employee of Johnny's. And she's an employee that Johnny sent a text to after he got a divorce, or after Amber like filed for a divorce and filed for the restraining order. He sent that nurse a text that said, "I was the client. Ultimately, if you and Debbie are able to at least speak of me, who I really am and what, I was the one who asked for you to calm her down and keep her under control. Not because she was kicking drugs, it was to take her pressure away from me. Same reason that I hired her shrink, who, by the way, only made her worse." This is the woman who received this text message is who Hasan thinks is not a trustworthy source of information about Amber's injuries because she was Amber's friend. Editing Jasmine here. So I went to find a clip of Hasan talking about Amber's relationship with Nurse Erin, and his commentary is actually a little bit worse than I remembered. Instead of accusing Erin of lying about Amber's injuries because she was her friend, he actually stated that Amber's good friend Erin didn't report seeing any injuries on Amber that night.
But most importantly, her fucking nurse friend took notes when she actually delivered medicine for her. Her friend, her own friend, said she had no injuries. Like, she took down notes doing a medical assessment where she said, "I don't see any, like, severe injuries what's so fucking ever, dude." That's crazy. That's madness.
That is not true. Erin's notes do report seeing injuries on Amber. The only thing she said she couldn't see was where Amber said the hair was pulled out of the back of her scalp. But some other witnesses did see it, and also there are photos, so I just really don't care. Now, maybe the injuries that Amber photographed or that multiple witnesses did state that they saw don't match Hasan's very fetishized idea of what a beaten woman looks like, or what a majority of broken noses look like for that matter. It doesn't really matter. My main point was just that him constantly emphasizing the friendship of Aaron and Amber was completely inappropriate, given the fact that the only reason Aaron was around Amber in the first place is because she was being paid to be by Johnny Depp. That is still something that Hasan completely overlooked, and it definitely does undermine his commentary on the matter. So my point still stands, but just for the record, Hasan was more wrong than I even thought that he was. So Amber has her last therapy session with Dr. Jacobs in August of 2014. She would later resume her treatment with Dr. Jacobs after she got a divorce from Johnny, and would say that, like, the reason I haven't seen you in so many years is because Johnny didn't want me seeing my own therapist anymore. But one of the final things that she said to Dr. Jacobs when they were engaged is that Johnny didn't want to get a prenup because Johnny said the only way one of them was leaving the marriage is through death. So then they got married. They got married in March or February of 2015. And this is where the post-nup and prenup conversation comes in. One of the things that Johnny has said is that the Australia fight that they had was prompted by Amber finding out that Johnny was going to get a post-nup after they got married, and she got really upset about it, and that started their whole fight. No fucking way that that's true. Just no fucking way. Because here's the thing. Number one, as Amber had already been telling her therapist prior to them getting married, she had been willing to sign a prenup. Johnny didn't want to because Johnny said the only way out was through death. Amber then was okay with getting a post-nup as well. She even hired an attorney to do the post-nup, and then Johnny fired her attorney on her behalf. This is her entire deposition. We're not going to watch it, but I just need it, like, pointed out. This woman testified and said, I was Amber's divorce attorney, her, like, attorney to work on her post-nup. Johnny called me and fired me and called me a bitch and, like, was loud and threatening to me.
My recollection is that he was very mean, that he called me names, and that he fired me on behalf of them.
When you say that he was very mean, what did you mean?
My only exact recollection is he called me a bitch.
So that leads us into the Australia incident. I'm going to read Amber's account and Johnny's account that I had written on my own website at the time. By the way, this is March of 2015, so this is somewhat like their honeymoon, because they got married in February. Now they're, like, having a vacation in Australia at this house, and then they get into this huge fight that ends up being one of the biggest fights of their relationship. The couple started arguing after Depp brought out a bag of MDMA. Heard was concerned about his drug usage. After this, Depp became angry and began slapping, pushing, and shoving Heard before she locked herself in a bedroom. Depp then stayed up all night and took approximately 8 MDMA pills, which he washed down with alcohol. Over the following 3 days, the couple continued fighting, and Depp became increasingly violent, grabbing Heard by the neck and shoving her against furniture. At one point, Depp ripped Heard's nightgown, grabbed her breasts, then strangled her before raping her with a glass bottle. Eventually, Heard took an Ambien and went to sleep. When she awoke, Depp had cut his finger and had written various messages throughout the home with his blood, as well as oil paint. Messages included things like starring Billy Bob Easy Amber, which indicated Depp's paranoid belief that Heard was having an affair with Billy Bob Thornton, and Good Luck and Be Careful at the Top, which mocked Heard's ambition as an actress. Depp also attempted to write other messages with his urine. That's what Amber said happened. Johnny, what he said happened is, after discovering Depp's intention to enter a post-nuptial agreement, Heard became enraged. She was also upset that she was not in Depp's will. The fighting escalated until Heard became extremely violent, not allowing Depp to retreat from the argument. She hit him, threw things at him, and put a lit cigarette out on his face. At one point, Depp threw 2 vodka bottles at Depp, cutting the tip of his finger off, though he would later tell doctors he injured his finger with a knife. Depp wrote messages in blood and oil paint because he was in shock, though he did not write "Call Carly Simon" on the mirror and believes that Heard wrote this since she always has the last word. Depp did not take MDMA pills, especially not 8, as that would be extremely dangerous and could possibly kill him. A majority of the damage done to the home was caused by Heard. The idea that Johnny was not on MDMA is fucking ridiculous, because there are text messages between him and his assistants from the days before asking him to get MDMA and cocaine. But this is one of the most insane text exchanges between Johnny and his assistants. He gets one of his assistants to get him MDMA one day, and then like the next day he's like, hey, I need more cocaine. And then the assistant is like, oh, so we kind of just gave you a bunch of drugs. Have you gone through them already? And then Johnny gets extremely upset, goes through a whole text thing where he's like, I don't need any of you fucking judging me, not one of you, blah, 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 blah. And like he's really mad. And then his assistant, Nathan, completely cowers and is like, I'm so sorry. I will never judge you. I love you so much. It is so pathetic. And it is so illustrative of his relationship with these people where like they cannot criticize him at all. They just have to do what he wants. So we know that he had drugs, including MDMA, with him when they went to Australia. That was like the entire point, is he wanted all these people to get him all these drugs so that he could take them in Australia. It's so fucking stupid to say that that didn't happen. It definitely did. And also, what the fuck do you mean? You went into shock and then started writing messages in the wall with your blood. Not only when he ran out of blood, he then started dipping his finger in oil paint and then started writing in that too. And people fucking believe him. They're like, yeah, and I still think that his account is more reasonable than Amber's. The guy who was writing on the walls in his blood. This is a This is a photo of his finger. I did want to make a couple points about the finger because this is a big sticking point where people think that Amber cut his finger off. There is not really any evidence of that. There's evidence to the contrary. So what Johnny says happened is that she threw a bottle at him. The bottle broke and then sliced that part of his, it's like right here, kinda, on his finger, but I think it's his middle finger. So like right there, sliced all the way through. That's what Johnny says happened. What Amber says happened is she doesn't know. She went to bed, she woke up, he had written on the walls in his blood, and part of his finger was gone. It could have happened while she was asleep because she had taken an Ambien, so she was like knocked out. But she thinks it might have happened during one of the assaults because there was at one point where he had her against the wall, and next to her head, he was slamming a phone into the wall. And she said the phone eventually broke into pieces. So she thinks he might have smashed his finger in that as he was smashing against the wall. There's also another theory about him hurting it on the French doors that they had in the house. That does kind of line up with what his own doctor said about it when he went to the emergency room, because he told the doctors that it had gotten cut off, that he had cut it with a knife while like in the kitchen or something. They wrote in their notes, he says that he cuts it. It is more proximately suggestive of a crushing mechanism. So crushing as opposed to slicing. So Amber's explanation kind of makes more sense. What's more is that there are a lot of text messages between Johnny and other people where he refers to this incident as the night that he injured his own finger. And now that I will give you, like if he was trying to cover up for Amber, he might not tell other people that she was the one who did it. That's fine, whatever, I get it. However, there are also audio recordings. There are 2 separate audio recordings where Amber and Johnny both separately refer to that night as the night Johnny cut his finger off.
I don't know which fight you're talking about. I don't know.
I'm talking about Australia, the day that
now we're talking about Australia. Okay.
So when I say that I thought you could kill me, that doesn't mean you counter with you also, that you lost your own finger.
And they never refer to it as anything else. She said stuff about having scratches on her arm. We have photos of her after that night with scratches on her arm. There were other people, including her sister and then some of her friends, who corroborated that she did also have scratches on the bottoms of her feet. They saw her afterwards. She looked pretty beaten up. So more evidence of Amber's injuries. Not a whole lot of evidence that Amber caused any injury to Johnny. This is one of the incidents where Amber says that she was the first one to initiate a physical fight, and this was because Johnny and Amber's sister were fighting on like the top of a staircase, and she says that she had been worried that Johnny was going to push her sister downstairs. So she initiated the violence in that scenario. But again, we look at the whole fucking history of their entire relationship. It's not really that unreasonable for Amber to start fights at this point, you know? Johnny has been initiating violence in the relationship regularly. That doesn't mean that in instances in which Amber starts initiating herself, that she is the abuser. But they got into a fight and then Johnny just started like throwing her clothes downstairs. He started trashing the penthouse and her items. There was another one on a train where she wrote in a diary entry that they had gotten into another fight, and at one point he had, let me see what it says. So her diary entry says, "Our fight was terrible. Jay finally at one point found himself with his shirt wrapped around my neck. Amazing to think about the precision/coordination that required considering the circumstances. He hit me several times. I don't even know how I wound up with this huge, rather annoying knot in the back of my head. Fuck, I hate it. I hate that I allow it by never using that as a line for which I stand my ground. Where are my cones? Do I have any left?" So she alleges that on this train ride, he strangled her with a shirt. And then he says that she hit him, that she punched him in the face, which, you know what? I think she would kind of have reason to at that point. But this is the one that he edited. So this is not the original photo, but this is the one that he submitted to the court. But there is another photo that doesn't have this coloring, where this like little dark circle or whatever around his eye isn't as prominent, but in this edit, it is a little bit more prominent. The funny thing about that is that he's using that as evidence that Amber punched him in the face. That same dark ring around his eye can be seen in other photos of Johnny with fans from days before. He got onto the train with that ring around his eye. It could not have been caused by Amber on the train ride. Anyway. He also, at this point, starts getting really, really controlling about Amber's film projects that she would take on, including this one for a movie called London Fields, where he started becoming very demanding towards the producers to get her nude scenes taken out. And then, so this is their first couples counselor that they see. And I wanted to highlight this one because there's two couples counselors. One of them thought that Johnny was abusive. They stopped seeing that counselor immediately. And then go to a second counselor who thinks that they have a mutually abusive relationship. One of those counselors' notes don't make it through to the jury. They don't get used as evidence because they're hearsay, even though this counselor did actually meet with both Amber and Johnny. But the one that said that Johnny was abusive, that's hearsay. The one who calls it mutually abusive, that's what the jury heard. It's around this point, this is like October of 2015. This is around when the audio recordings start. So the recordings of like Amber admitting to hitting Johnny, that's in this instance, that's like September of 2015. So like right around this point where they're going to couples counseling. And I think that's why they were doing it, is they were recording their fights to, you know, bring it to like show it to the couples counselor or something, or to like listen to it again themselves. So that's why a lot of the audio recordings exist. But anyway, even in that recording that you have of her admitting to hitting him, it exists within the entire context of the relationship. So from November of 2011 to right here, which is September of 2015, so much had happened before that point that when you get to the part where Amber is admitting like, oh, I hit you, she has been the victim of so much violence before then. And that's what reactive abuse is. People think of it maybe as like self-defense or something, where they're like, oh, well, if Amber had just hit him when he was already hitting her, then that's okay. I was like, no, sometimes, because they're already in a violent relationship, yeah, sometimes Amber did start physical confrontations, because that was what the relationship was at that point. It was either she starts a physical confrontation, or she waits for him to start one, and then just takes it? And even in this, if you read the full transcript from the fight with the hitting, the context becomes really, really clear. So this one, we don't actually have the whole audio recording for it, but the transcript did come from the unsealed documents. So we do have the transcript from the recording. We just don't have the actual audio. But so reading the transcript, the context of that fight is that Johnny had locked himself in a bathroom again. Amber had come to the bathroom and was trying to get in. He then opened the door. As he's opening it, the door hits her toes and hurts her. And then she hits him, just reacting to like, oh, something is happening with my body right now. We must be in a physical fight. And that's what she explained. She says, I hit you, yes, after I felt that barrier was broken down. When the door slammed on my foot, I went, oh shit, it's going down. I reacted to the pain. The fucking door caught me, and I thought, he's getting violent. I thought we were going there in my head. We've been there before, and I reacted. Last time, the last 3 fights, all in Toronto, I didn't react, and I felt fucked over. Royally fucked over. No one was in more pain than me for that entire week following, because I heard everything that you just cannot imagine to somebody, and I didn't react. I didn't stoop to that level. I didn't call you names. I didn't tell you I didn't love you. I didn't do any of that shit, and I suffered for it. So I have learned, probably in a bad way, that it didn't do any good when you take the high road, and when you're the only person doing it, you get hurt more. And so I feel like that didn't work. I tried really hard in Toronto. I walked away with all the fucking bruises. And the second I felt physical pain, it just went, in my brain, something went different than the emotional pain, and I went, shit, this is going down. I did mean to hit you with my fist or hand. I didn't mean to punch you. I meant to hit you. I'm sorry I didn't open my hand. I'm actually sorry I did it at all. I should never do that. I should never get physical. But in my defense, I felt that pain and I went, this is physical, and I just thought we were going there. And I didn't last time, and I got hurt more for it. I'm sorry I did it, and I came over today because I feel bad. That's what the audience did not hear, was her explanation for why she hit him that day. Next, we have December 15th. This is one of their last physical fights. Well, there's a few other physical fights, but this is one of the last, big ones. According to Amber, she informed Johnny that she intended to leave him, and if he ever touched her again, she would call the police. As she began to walk toward a guest apartment, Johnny pushed her. He then grabbed her and pushed her from one room to the next. At some point, he grabbed her by the throat, pushed her down to the ground, and punched her in the back of the head. He then grabbed her by the hair, slapped her in the face, and screamed, "I will fucking kill you. I will fucking kill you. You hear me?" or similar words. In the process, Johnny pulled large chunks of hair and scalp out of her head. He then headbutted her, hitting her on the nose with his forehead. Heard was worried she had a concussion and contacted a doctor the following day. She did not have a concussion, but she did suffer headaches for a week after the assault. In addition to the assault on Heard, Depp also greatly damaged the apartment. Heard and her friend Raquel Pennington took photos of the damage. The bed had been splintered, a clump of Heard's hair sat on the carpet, and Depp vandalized the apartment, writing, "Why be a fraud? All is such bullshit" on the kitchen counter with gold pen. The next day, Heard was scheduled to appear on The Late Late Show with James Corden. Her makeup artist had to cover Heard's injuries prior to the taping. That's what Amber said happened. What Johnny said happened is Heard fabricated much of the incident in an effort to continue her hoax. So this is where the hoax stuff starts, where Amber is now apparently planting evidence to accuse Johnny Depp of abuse. For what fucking reason, I don't know. The blonde hair on the ground, for instance, did not belong to Heard. Where did she get it then? The only violence committed on that night was by Heard, not Depp. Heard violently attacked Depp, leaving him with scratches and swelling around the face. Heard, by contrast, had no visible injuries. Depp did inadvertently hit Heard with his head, but this was only an accident as Depp attempted to hold Heard in a way that would intercept her assault on him. Afterward, Heard faked an injury to her nose and put nail polish onto a tissue to convince Depp that he had caused her nose to bleed. If Heard had been seen with a bloody lip, this was because she frequently had dry, chapped lips and bit them in order to cause them to bleed. Depp committed the graffiti left on the kitchen counter, but did not inflict any other form of damage within the apartment. Then we have February of 2016. This is the one time that Amber recorded Johnny without his knowledge. He came home drunk, very angry. Amber then put her iPad on a counter to record him. People were saying that this was right after his mom died. No, this was February of 2015. His mom wouldn't die until May. The reason he was upset was because of a business dealing, and he himself said that. He said in a GQ interview in 2018, "What happened had to do with finding out that I had lost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars." That is why Johnny was upset. He came home, he was angry, he was throwing things. She started recording him because she thought that he was about to get violent toward her. And that is pretty fucking reasonable. There's another fight on Amber's birthday. He then left for the evening. He had gone to one of his other properties. He owned 14 properties at the time. Amber owned 0. But the next day, Amber goes to Coachella, which people try to use against her as oh, you just got into this violent fight with your husband and now you're going to Coachella. Why would that matter? She's supposed to not go to Coachella for her birthday because her husband is an abuser? What fucking sense does that make? Anyway, though, this is the incident that leads into the poop conversation. So Amber and Johnny got into a fight. Johnny left the property. Amber went to Coachella. When Amber goes to Coachella, the housekeeper goes into the room and finds a little poop on the bed. She then tells Johnny about it. They then decide that Amber left the poop. Now, an important thing to acknowledge here is that the original allegation that Johnny made is not that Amber pooped in the bed, because Johnny didn't think, even in his own depositions in the UK trial, he said, "I don't think Amber would poop in the bed." What he thought happened was that Amber's friend Io pooped in the bed, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever considering the bed was in California and Io was in New York. But this gets turned around into Amber poops in the bed. Doesn't make any sense. What most likely happened is that their dog Boo, who had known bowel issues and who had pooped in the bed previously. There is a text message in which Amber is reporting that Boo had pooped not just in the bed, but on Johnny in the bed. Why would Amber do it to her own bed to get back at Johnny when he had left the property for the foreseeable future? Like, he could have been gone for weeks. He has 14 other houses. He had already left. This wouldn't have done anything to him. It doesn't make any sense. Johnny's mom died May 20th. He came over to the apartment right afterward, the day after. They then got into a huge physical confrontation where Johnny confronted Amber about the poop in the bed, thinking that it was Io. Amber called Io on the phone. Amber, tells the situation to Io, Johnny thinks you pooped in our bed while you were in New York. They start laughing about it because it's so fucking ridiculous. Johnny gets upset at the fact that they're laughing about it. He then starts attacking Amber physically, pulling her hair, slamming her against the wall or the floor or whatever. The phone falls. Amber starts yelling, "Call 911" to Io. Io then does that, and we even have audio recording of the 911 call. Io calls 911. Johnny leaves. He does a whole bunch of damage in the apartment, flings wine everywhere, breaks a bunch of glass. Her friend Rocky then came over because Rocky lived in the penthouse right next door, which was also owned by Johnny. She came over. She saw Johnny attacking Amber, and there were other people too. There was another person. There was Josh Drew, who was Rocky's boyfriend at the time. He also witnessed some of it. He didn't witness Johnny attacking Amber, but he witnessed Johnny doing other damage in the apartment. Then there was Elizabeth Martz, who also witnessed the same thing because she was friends with Amber and Johnny and Rocky. She was with Josh that night. So there are multiple other witnesses who saw all of this happen. They are all, according to Johnny Depp, part of Amber's hoax. And this is what Johnny says happened, is that all of these people created this damage after he left the apartment. These are photos of the injuries from Amber. This is the day of. This is the day of. This is the day after. So you can see people accuse her of doing this with makeup. But if she's doing it with makeup, she's being very precise to make sure that the bruises develop in the right way every new day. This is 2 days after. These are also the bruises on her legs. Then Amber files for a restraining order. Oh, this is another thing. I wanted to bring this up because this is really important too. When she files for divorce, all the documents around that become public, obviously. And so we know how much money Amber had been making at the time. In 2015, the year that they got married, Amber took home $51,461. So everyone, Hasan, who tries to say that this is just an argument between a rich man and a rich woman, it is really not fair to hold her to she's just some rich, famous white woman. When she was never rich, Johnny owned 14 different homes. Amber owned none. And if it weren't for this case, she would not be anywhere near as famous as she currently is. Johnny then hires Adam Waldman a little bit after the divorce. And Adam Waldman he's a weird guy. He's got a weird history to him. He comes into Johnny's life, and then things really start to escalate in terms of his legal battles against other people. So in 2018, Amber writes this op-ed where she refers to herself as a public figure representing abuse. After that, Johnny files a lawsuit, and then Adam Waldman starts leaking information to what he calls internet journalists, YouTubers, bloggers, especially people who have some sort of anti-Me Too or pro-men's rights activist kind of content. So Incredibly Average is one of them. He posts a lot of the audio recordings, edited audio recordings, along with commentary where he's calling Amber Heard a liar and trying to poke holes in her story. All this stuff comes out before the trial happens, and it's building up for years. It's also tabloids like the Daily Mail, and I think maybe also Page Six. He's putting out all of this information bit by bit over the course of years to build up this idea that Amber Heard was the abuser the entire time, because there are a lot of recordings where Amber is being very loud and being kind of sounding pretty mean out of context when you don't know the horrors that she's had to endure up to that point. If you release all of it just little by little bit by little bit, it makes Amber look pretty bad. And that's what happened. Oh, he started coercing and threatening witnesses as well. There are audio recordings of that, of people telling Amber, this dude just called me and he threatened me and said that I was gonna get sued if I didn't say this against you or blah, 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 blah. He is actually so fishy. He was supposed to be Johnny's lead attorney in the Virginia trial. He got kicked off the case because of the amount of stuff that he was leaking to the press about Amber. There are also a lot of reports of inauthentic bot activity. So about 50% of the online activity around the Depp v. Heard trial is estimated to have been fake. And that's another thing, is that they were able to make it seem like everyone is against Amber Heard. They were able to create this mob mentality that we've all already decided Amber Heard is the bad guy, when about 50% of that online activity was just fully fake. For anyone who would like to know more about how Amber got fucked over by the court itself, I really do recommend reading Amber's appeal brief. She filed for an appeal after the jury verdict. They did come to a settlement pretty quickly after that. And the settlement was really, really in Amber's favor. She paid Johnny like $1 million, and that didn't even come out of her pocket. That came out of like insurance. The jury verdict was gonna get him like $16 million or something. I think the reason he settled so quickly and settled with terms that were so favorable to Amber is that this appeal brief was pretty good. And if it became public and she did successfully appeal the case, it would really bring attention to how absolutely stacked in Johnny's favor the entire trial was from the start. There is a lot of stuff in here about like the evidence that got turned down that Amber had submitted. There's a lot of stuff too about just weird stuff with what the jury was told about what they were even deliberating on. It's very good. I recommend reading the appeal brief for more information. I also recommend looking into Amber's insurance battle. This is an article by Puck. It is behind a paywall, but I think you maybe get like one article free, so you can read it if you want. But this is another thing too, where like fucking leftist Hasan Piker completely failed to cover the fact that Amber really got fucked over in terms of her selection of lawyers, because she had different lawyers in the beginning that her insurance was supposed to cover. One of them then exploited this very obscure Virginia law. And the fact that this whole thing took place in Virginia is also just fucked to begin with. It's because the Washington Post happened to have a server in Virginia. That's the entire reason that the trial took place in Virginia. But because it took place in Virginia, her insurance company got out of paying for her attorneys. So then she got stuck with a local Virginia law firm that did not specialize in defamation, but specialized in employment discrimination. And I don't want to like shit on the attorneys that much because I think that they were like doing the best they could, but they were just so woefully unprepared for what they were gonna have to deal with here. Like Johnny, he had big attorneys. He had like an international law firm. He had a lead attorney who studied under Bob Shapiro. They knew how to do the whole like pageantry of the trial. They knew how to put on a show. Amber's attorneys did not. They weren't prepared for this kind of case. This thing where like Johnny Depp was 300 times wealthier than Amber was. They buried her. They buried her with money. Might be something that a leftist cares about. So that's it. That's our Amber Heard, Johnny Depp retelling. Just in case anyone comes across this VOD in this stream who doesn't know anything about the case, that's what happened. Now that we've covered all that, we're gonna have to get into Hasan's coverage. Now that we've set the groundwork for why it was so fucking bad. All right, guys, here we go.
All right, let's see what this actor Johnny Depp situation is like.
First of all, too, I love the fact that he's not he isn't even actually live reacting to the trial. He's just watching some like Good Morning America take on it. So like really just getting like the base summary, not at all actually looking into it, even so much as watching the live trial, which I don't agree with live reacts for the trial anyway. But at least if you're gonna cover it, cover the fucking trial, you know, because at least there's like more evidence being presented, more things being presented. He's just watching an overview from somebody else. And then what? Now, years later, is like, I've had the right take the whole time. I watched a summary.
Misheard in any way, nor have I ever struck
Didn't like Amber Heard literally fuck this dude up? Isn't that why like a lot of men's right activists use this as a court case to be like, why are you never talking about this? Why are you never talking about this? When it's just straight up like he would get her like drunk, or whenever he was like super fucking drunk, he would like take advantage of him and shit. Cut his finger off. God damn, dude. She shat on the bed. What the fuck? He's still.
Yeah, he's literally just getting information from his chat. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Filed for divorce 15 months later.
Oh my god, is she dating Eve Fartlow? Shut the fuck up. Oh no. Oh my. Oh.
Okay. First of all, she was never dating Eve Barlow. They were friends. But this is the same thing with like the Elon stuff. Where, yeah, is Amber Heard associated with bad people? Uh-huh. And I don't typically like people that associate with him. And I'm not even saying, like, who fucking cares? Who fucking cares if you like Amber Heard or not? Like, even if she has shitty friends, even if she is a shitty person, like, doesn't change the dynamics of the relationship. But either way, I saw the beginning of her relationship with Elon through, like, text messages and through her statements to other people and other witness statements. And, like, she was in a bad place. She started dating Elon immediately after the breakup with Johnny. He got her at her most vulnerable. And then with the Eve Barlow thing, that happened a bit later, but it was when Johnny had already started this insane propaganda campaign against her and this hate campaign against her to the point where, like, yeah, Eve Barlow was being nice to her. What the fuck did you expect her to do? You really, like, at some point you get kind of desperate for friends when the whole world is against you, and Eve Barlow stood up for her. Not even just privately, Eve Barlow stood up for her very publicly. I think it would be really, really hard for a lot of people to like be like, well, no, I don't agree with your takes on Israel. We can't be friends. Like, she was kind of in a tough spot. So yeah, okay, she was fucking friends with Eve Barlow. I can't really judge Amber for that.
Oh my god. Tried dating Elon too? Oh no.
Of course, he wants to use that against her too. We're gonna have to do this. I'm doing this on 1.5 speed because I can't.
She banged Elon in a threesome? What the fuck? Elon.
Okay, stop. Why are you even reading that from the fucking chat? That's so fucking gross. He's so gross. You're talking about a fucking abuse case right now. You know that, right? Like, yeah, it's a defamation case, but it's a defamation case about abuse. And you're just reading things from the chat and being like, she had a three-way with Elon? What? Gross. You're gross. You're a gross person. I like you some of the times, but you're a gross person.
Almost having threesomes, dude. God damn. Straight up, this turns me into a fucking incel red pill Andy. When I'm like, how the fuck is Elon Musk having three ways, dude?
In a 2018 Washington Post opinion piece, she recounted her experience with violence and referred to herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse.
So what happened? Like, Me Too popped off, and then Amber Heard was like, this is my opportunity to fucking hey, like, completely flip this on Johnny Depp instead.
You're so gross. She filed the restraining order before the Me Too movement. And in the op-ed, she didn't mention his name. She said that she was a public figure representing abuse, and now you're accusing her of trying to... You're so gross. Go fuck yourself.
Is that what happened? Wait, they played the live audio Depp snuck of her?
I said to Travis, I said to you, hey, tell Travis what just happened.
You told me to do it.
And again, we've explained the context of this clip about her admitting to hitting him. It's a bad clip. Like, she sounds bad in it. But when you hear the entire context, it is not what it is made out to seem. But I do understand. I understand. Like, there was a moment where I didn't know if I believed Amber Heard, where I bought into some of the propaganda because I heard this clip, and I heard this clip out of context. And she sounds really bad in it. And so, okay, in this instance, I get that Hasan is hearing this and he's thinking about this in a different way, but like, you know what? Here's the thing. I said some bad shit about Amber on an Instagram story. I said that as a person with about like 300 followers, and they were all my friends and family. I didn't propagate this shit when I was a political streamer with 1.6 million subscribers on YouTube. He probably didn't have that amount at the time, but probably at least over 1 million. And he has also people on Twitch, obviously, that's his main platform. He has an audience where this kind of lack of research is just completely unacceptable. Again, he's not even watching the actual trial. He's watching, what is this, CBS News or whatever? Their recap of it?
I'm gonna be honest with you, given my history, I'm gonna have to side with Johnny Depp on this, okay? It sounds a lot like situations that I've been in as well, where, you know, it's just, men can be abused in relationships as well, physically, for the record.
And you know what? Okay, and this is the thing too, where if you have, I think that a lot of men did side with Johnny for that because they wanted him to be a representation of male victims of abuse. And I get that. And there are male victims of abuse. Johnny Depp is not one of them in this instance. But they do exist, and I get why they wanted some sort of representation. And if Hasan dealt with that, then I am very sorry for Hasan that happened. But that is not an excuse to do the amount of the shitty fucking reporting that he's doing. Okay, that might be your gut emotional reaction to something, but you are a political streamer who has some level of responsibility with your platform. And for you to not do research and for you to just go on gut of like, well, I'm a male victim of abuse, therefore I'm siding with Johnny Depp, that's not acceptable. That's not enough work. You have to do more work than that. You have to know what you're talking about more than that.
I think that, you know, we do definitely. She literally says Depp didn't hit her. Holy shit, don't let incels make you think she's not a fucking mom.
What? She said Depp didn't hit her? What the fuck is he even talking about? Why is he reading this? And why the fuck? Okay, I get it. If you're like just reading random shit in the chat, like, okay, yes. Maybe you read something that you're not even standing behind. But like, again, this is an edited video on his YouTube channel. This is something that his editor decided like, oh, I want to have that comment in the fucking video. That contributes.
So, I don't understand. People in the chat are saying that like Amber Heard is like mutually abusive. It was a mutually abusive relationship. But one side has like, you know, documentation, evidence, sound recordings of admission and a finger being cut off almost. And also history of abuse. And the other side is just hearsay. And
Johnny Depp doesn't have a history of abuse. There aren't multiple other women who have described similar things as Amber has described. Like Jennifer Grey has said that he was controlling. She described a lot of the same behaviors that Amber did. There is evidence of him abusing Winona Ryder. And there also was Ellen Barkin who testified in the fucking trial that he had been abusive to her and that he had been violent around her.
You can please tell people that it was a fair fight and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too.
Right there too. He's listening to this audio recording and he's reading right there. Tell them Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, a man. She does not say a man. She says, Johnny Depp, man. As in like, hey man. Which is how Johnny talks. He always says man. Go back and listen.
You can please tell people that it was a fair fight and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny.
And also, the way that he's like, when she says it's a fair fight, if you listen to the full fucking recording, asshole, she's talking about when she thought he was about to kill her. And she, at the time, if you go back and you look at photos from her at the time, and this is what her fucking therapist was talking about when she was talking about seeing photos of Amber publicly at that time, Amber was like 98 pounds. She was tiny. She was withered. Johnny easily could have fucking killed her and not even do it on purpose. That's what she's saying in this recording, is that like she thought that he was gonna fucking kill her. And he's saying, but you threw a can at me. Like, yeah, motherfucker.
Tell them Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too, Johnny Depp. And
Yes.
it's a fair fight.
oh my God, this is literally like, what's that movie with fucking Ben Affleck and the blonde woman? Gone
He's an idiot. He's the dumbest person I've ever fucking
bro, this is some Gone
seen
Girl
in my
shit.
life.
What the fuck? This is literally like utilizing fucking patriarchy and toxic masculinity to abuse a dude. Okay,
The fuck do you know about patriarchy? You choice feminist neo-lib asshole.
The 14 assaults were approved to the civil standard. The 14 assaults were approved to the civil standard. First of all, Depp got angry, not confident rage when she had hung a candy bar in front of her. What? As part of positive rage, and tried to set it on fire and hit her so hard that blood was on the wall. First tried to document the time of binge, distributed that drug whiskey, and taking cocaine before the assault. It's Phil, Depp out on mushrooms and said, what the fuck, how you get mad on magic mushrooms, dude? Personal friends Hasan Piker, the only drug was resistant to her. He said to have been her, but her and he had the same, he doesn't found that they'd been angry when the assault occurred. It's the alcohol part if he was drunk enough. Oh, so they're saying because he had alcohol problems that it's like, it could have been. They're saying that he could have. These are allegations, not evidence. All the time her painkiller defense is quite violent. Depp, she's her statement. Depp was said to push her to the ground, slapped her, grabbed her hair, kicked the door so hard, explained that the judge was more likely than not on at least one occasion. Further alleged Depp, after being violent towards her, sentence was consequently 47 women, the judge declared that the alleged constituted physical assault. In Tokyo, Muslim Korean, Depp was shot, slapped, grabbed her hair, Depp said his children did with him, he would not act as the children did in another room, and he denied that the president was
Over 3 days in Australia filming Pirates of the Caribbean, Depp was said to have put Heard in fear of her life. Heard claimed he was assaulted her multiple times. He severed his fingertip. Wait, Heard?
Yeah, Ophi pointed out he sounded so much more mad about her being friends with Eve Barlow than he does about any of this. Exactly. He heard that she's friends with Eve Barlow and he's like, oh, I don't like her. And now all the stuff about her getting violently abused, he's just like, well...
Claimed he had assaulted her multiple times. He severed his fingertip and scrawled graffiti in the blood on the walls. The judge did not accept Heard had been responsible for the severed fingertip through throwing a vodka bottle at Depp. He accepted Heard had been a victim to sustain it. Wait, what? This fucking judge said the instance where like Heard ripped his fucking finger off?
You don't know anything about it. You just heard about it from your fucking chat. You heard about it from your chat that she did that. You don't know anything about the incident, and you're deciding that the judge was wrong. That the judge who looked at all the evidence, who saw everything, that they were wrong, and that you're right because your chat told you that she injured his finger. The fuck? You don't know anything about it.
Even in that instance, they're saying Johnny Depp was responsible for the abuse and he hurt himself? What the fuck? Wait, what?
Because he probably did. Because that's what all the fucking evidence shows, you idiot. A lot of people have seen this, and a lot of people take what he says seriously, and he's clearly learning about it in real time, just as he's reading articles and reading his chat and watching the CBS summary of events. And it's like multiple years later, he's still standing by everything he said when it's like, but you didn't do anything. You didn't do any research. You don't know anything. You don't know anything.
The next day, feces was found on the couple's bed. The judge concluded Depp had assaulted Miss Heard, as he had done on previous occasions when he was stressed. Of Depp's claim that Heard, or one of her friends, had deliberately defecated on the bed, the judge said it was highly unlikely. Okay, but isn't this now proven in the other case that it was Heard?
No, it was not proven, you idiot. What are you talking about? Because Johnny Depp said that there was poop on his bed, you're like, well, no, it's proven that she pooped on his bed. You don't know anything. You don't know anything.
I feel like half of these instances where the judge said, oh yeah, this is likely, feels like it wasn't actually.
I feel like, this is the thing too, is that I actually didn't watch this full video all the way through when I was doing my research. So I've never even watched this full 49-minute video. I watched something else where he was recounting the stuff that happened in the UK trial. I thought I was giving him the benefit of the doubt. I thought he had read the fucking trial. And I was like, how did he get some of this information when none of that is actually in any of the court documents? Like, did he just misread it? Did he misremember it? Did he read it like a long time ago and is just, he doesn't remember everything? Like, what happened? Why is he so wrong? And I guess now I'm finding out this is why. He didn't read any of the documents. He read a summary from, it looks like, The Guardian, and then also read what his chat told him and saw what CBS News said and was like, I'm getting the impression that this UK judge just didn't like Johnny and just sided with Amber just 'cause. I gave him so much more credit than I should have, assuming that he had even fucking read the documents and misremembered them. He didn't do any of that.
Actually, you know, about Heard's assault charge in 2009 on her then girlfriend. Amber Heard arrested in 2000. So all of Johnny Depp's prior relationships have come out in support of him, saying they were never
No.
were assaulted by him.
That's not true. That he had an ex-girlfriend who fucking testified in Amber's defense and said that he was abusive. You idiot, you asshole, you absolute fucking dumbass.
Amber Heard does have a history of prior abuse. I mean, that in and of itself, on top of all the evidence that you're seeing, is like, you know, it's a little sussy baka. I'm just gonna say it. Especially, maybe I'm a little biased personally because, like,
sussy baka. Here's the thing too. Amber Heard does not have a single ex who has ever accused her of abuse. Tasia Van Ray has never accused her of abuse. None of her exes have. So if we're doing this whole thing about who has the history of abuse and who doesn't, Johnny has a history of abuse. Amber doesn't, at least according to her exes. And you know what? It doesn't even fucking matter because you can be abusive in one relationship and not abusive in another. That's just not really how anything works.
Lesbian? What the fuck? Okay, dude, dude, every time you guys give me new information.
Yeah, every time you guys give me new information, because that's where he's getting his information. It's from the fucking chat. At a time, by the way, where 50% of the online activity was inauthentic. And I'm not gonna accuse his own chat of being like bots or being fake accounts just meant to like throw him off, but it is something to keep in mind that like all the online activity at the time, half of it was fucking fake, and Hasan is getting information from his audience, just from random accounts, posting links in his chat. He's an idiot. I hate him so much, but I like him. I like him. I knew that it was gonna get heated like this, but he's smart about other things. He's smart about other things. He's smart about other things. He's a net positive. He's a net positive.
He's like, you know, it's a little sussy baka. I'm just gonna say it. Especially, maybe I'm a little biased personally because, like, you know, I've been in a similar circumstance, but I mean, that is pretty sussy. You know, that's sussy as fuck. Let's be real. One of the cops she accused of being homophobic was a lesbian. What the fuck?
The cop that arrested her was a man. The lesbian he's talking about just worked at the airport.
Okay, dude, dude, every time you guys give me new information, it just like turns, it's like it's like what's true and what's not true changes.
Exactly, because you don't know, because you didn't look into it.
Amber Heard is so obsessed with Johnny Depp that she deadass wore a B pin like Johnny the first day of trial. What? Okay, that's really weird.
Oh my God, I knew he followed this shit. I forgot. I fucking forgot. And I think I put this clip in one of my videos, but I forgot about this. That he starts entertaining the like weird conspiracy theory shit of like she's copying his outfits. Oh my God.
What the fuck? I never really like looked into this because I thought that it was, you know.
Yeah, we know you didn't look into it. We know it. We know.
It's like a weird Hollywood fancy story, like, you know, palace intrigue story. But it does
and then also,
me.
How did we forget ACAB suddenly? Exactly. Hasan doesn't trust cops until it's a cop accusing a woman of abuse. Even when her ex-girlfriend didn't accuse her of abuse, and even when that woman he's referring to wasn't a cop.
A lot of the details that are coming out.
Or she might have been a cop. I think I've heard some stuff that she maybe was a retired police officer, but she wasn't the cop arresting Amber. I only started following Hasan recently because of his recent activity. I feel so disappointed now, but he's so nice to look at. It's not fair. I'm sorry. The thing is that he is better about other stuff. And I do want to emphasize that, as much as I am getting very upset with him right now, because he is a fucking idiot and he should know that. No, he is better about a lot of stuff. Like I said, he's a net positive. I'm glad he exists. I just need him to get his shit together and actually take things involving women seriously a little bit, maybe. There's absolutely like room too for him to like educate himself and grow. The problem is that he won't admit that he's wrong. And that's kind of the issue that I have with him, is like, this case is it's like the biggest indication that he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to women, and he won't do anything about it. And he knows this footage is out there and he still is defending himself. That's the whole thing for me. It's like, you could just like educate yourself and do better, but you don't.
Abused under questioning by his
and
lawyer.
I want him to. I want him to. That's the whole point of this stream, is like, I want, if any of his audience sees this, and I don't think he'll see it, but if anyone in his audience sees it, like, I just want more pressure to be put on him to just get his shit together. Just research stuff a little bit more. Know what you're talking about. Care a little bit. Or just call somebody. Be like, hey, I don't know anything about this topic. You seem to know about it. Can you come onto my stream and talk about it? I know so many people that would be willing to do that, myself included. I don't want to dislike Hasan. I want to like him. I really, really do.
For financial gains.
Yeah, he'd
on
take
January
this as an
14,
attack.
2017.
I know, and that's why, like, I'm not ever really trying to address Hasan specifically. I don't think he would ever come across this in the first place. Like, I'm a tiny channel and he's very big, so I don't think I would ever even be on his radar. But like, even if I was, I don't feel like I have any hope of getting to Hasan personally, but I do think his chat has some sort of influence over him. It's clearly where he's getting a lot of his information from. And if just like some more of them saw what he was saying and saw how wrong it was and put some more pressure on him to just educate himself a little more, or to reach out. Like, if there was a bigger demand for like, hey, when you talk about feminist topics, can you please call a feminist? Please?